now, you always hear the stories of athletes who, when the ball stops, like they're just lost. They don't know what to
Yes.
do. And that was always a fear factor for me. And that fear kind of drove me to wanting to set up a plan as a safety net.
Today on the show, I'm talking with retired pro basketball player and a member of the 2005 University of Louisville Final Four team. Larry O'Bannon is up next. Welcome back to the Fifth Quarter Podcast. I'm your host, Sandy Adams, and this is where we dive deep into the world of sports, talking with retired athletes, current athletes, and everyone that helps make the sports world great. A quick reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the show. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Audible, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And hey, if you love what you hear today, take a screenshot of this episode and share it on Instagram stories, tagging us at 5THQRT podcast so more folks can discover these stories. Now grab your iced tea or your coffee, get ready to be motivated and inspired because this is where the real stories are told. Today's guest grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, a hometown kid who stepped onto the biggest stage in college basketball and delivered when it mattered most. In 2005, he helped lead the Louisville Cardinals to their first Final Four appearance since 1986, earning West Regional MVP honors along the way, and became one of Coach Rick Pitino's most trusted players. When his college career ended, his journey with the game did not. He took basketball global, building a 15-plus years professional career across Europe and South America. And like so many athletes, his most important work started after that final buzzer. Since then, he's become an entrepreneur, a broadcaster, a coach, and podcast host of The Player's Perspective Uncensored. Larry O'Bannon, welcome to the Fifth Quarter.
Thank you, Sandy. It's a pleasure to be here. I know it's been something that we've been putting in the works, and I'm excited to get on here and talk a little bit about you with about sports, about after sports, and just a little bit about everything. So thank you for having me on.
You are quite welcome. It's funny because Devonte Lane, who you know, he worked at the University of Louisville and
Hmm.
he was on, and he also worked at the University of Memphis. It's episode 75, if anybody wants to go back and take a listen. He was on, and after we were kind of catching up, and he's like, hey, that Memphis Louisville rivalry game is coming back up. You know, they've started this series. And he's like, you should do like, somebody from like an old Louisville team. And he goes, I know just the person. And I was like, oh my God, that's great. So we didn't get to do it before this series, but that's okay because it's not about the series itself. So let's talk about you grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Did you like how soon did you start playing sports as a kid?
Oh man, probably from the time I could walk, I've always played basketball because I come from a basketball family. I have me and my mom, my dad played basketball. They both played in high school. My older sister, Sharonda, she played basketball. She went to University of Cincinnati, and then she played at Bellarmine University. She was All American there. Had a younger sister, Shanika. She played basketball and ran track at Male. And so I was always around athletics and just always around basketball. And so just from the time I can remember, I'd always have a basketball in my hand, always playing. So as far as back as I can remember, I've always been playing the game of basketball.
So that actually is kind of brings up the fact because I was going to ask if you played any other sports besides basketball.
I did. So up until I got to high school, whatever season it was, I played. I played baseball, I played football, I played basketball. Those were the big three. It was a little bit of time I dabbled in some soccer, but it was more so just to get out there and play and be active. But basketball, baseball, and football were my major
Right.
sports.
It's interesting because a lot of the athletes have played multiple sports
Hmm.
and talked about how they actually thought it made them a better player because each sport uses different types of muscles and things like that. And so that's very interesting. So when you go into high school, and you went to high school obviously in Louisville, did you have like what were your dreams about what to do after graduation? Or did that even enter your mind?
Uh, so I grew up, I was always a big UConn fan. Anybody that knows me knows that I was a
Really?
diehard Ray Allen fan. So I always had dreams of wanting to go and play at UConn. That was my dream school. And so going into high school, I knew that I wasn't really going to play any other sports because I liked them, but I didn't really love them. Like I love
Mm,
basketball. I
right.
played baseball, I played football, and I was pretty good at both. And if I would have taken them seriously, could I have probably made it to the
Mm,
next level of playing at collegiate? Probably could have. For sure, I could have played football. Football, I could have played at the collegiate level. My high
right.
school coaches were trying to get me out, but I knew I wanted to focus on basketball because that's just where my heart and where my passion was. And so once I got there, I knew I all along I wanted to try to play and try to play at UConn or play at Tennessee. Those were my two schools that I wanted to go play at because I was a big fan of Allen Houston and Wade Houston. So I wanted to kind
Mm.
of keep that connection going. I love Louisville, watched Louisville. I was a fan of Louisville. Some of my favorite players growing up, I loved watching them. But anybody that knows me, my dream was always to play basketball at UConn.
So going through high school, how did that change from what you had wanted to do to playing at the University of Louisville?
Well, man, opportunity came when I was playing in high school, and I received a few letters from UConn, but UConn was more so really recruiting guys more so on the East Coast. And they had some
Yeah.
other guys that think they ended up taking Ben Gordon, which ended up being a NBA All-Star, six man of the year. And I was coming down to a few different schools. I wanted to go and visit Tennessee. Coach got fired. I probably would, if I didn't go to Louisville, I probably would have ended up at Dayton. Could have went
Hmm.
to Colorado. University of Alabama, Birmingham was on me pretty tough. But Rick Pitino took the job at the University of Louisville, and man, it got word of mouth that I was available and came to watch me play. And I actually didn't play well, but still fortunate enough to where he offered me a scholarship. And man, it seemed like a fitting opportunity for me to go and play for a Hall of Fame coach and stay close to home and play at the University of Louisville. And it just seemed like it was a match made. And, that's what I did.
So when you came to Louisville, Rick Pitino was that like his first or second year there?
His first year. So he had just left the Boston Celtics
Hmm.
and was coming back to collegiate game and announced his announced his signing at the University of Louisville that he was going to be the coach there. And so I was the very first recruit that he brought in there.
I actually remember that a little bit. I had just moved to Houston, and so I wasn't as attuned to the basketball world at that time.
Mhm.
But I mean, if you talk about Memphis Louisville rivalries, I went to college here in like the late 80s, early 90s. So I remember like all of that stuff. But when I look at big time coaches coming back, and Memphis, obviously, we have some arguments about that now because we don't really have local talent as much anymore. And I think that, that was smart of Patino to really look at the local players and see what he could bring in. I think that was really smart. So that first year as a freshman, what was that transition like from high school to college basketball?
I was drastic. It was drastic. And when I say drastic, because in high school I played for a coach who was very religious and didn't believe in cursing. And so he would yell, but like he was just this very nice, loving gentleman, big FCA driven guy. And he would always tell me, you think you're working hard now. He said, but wait till you get to college. He said, you have no
Yeah.
idea. I'm like, how can it get much harder than this, man? As much as you make us run. And so when I got to college, it was drastically different. I had a coach in Rick Pitino who didn't, he woke up and he has curse words in his cereal bowl, and he didn't have a problem getting his point across. Mastermind, and another thing was just the work ethic, right? And learning, how his style of play, the work
Yeah.
ethic, and how you have to prepare your body in order to play the style of play that he wants to play. And it probably took me about a year and a half to really get my body into physical shape to really play at peak
Right.
basketball for 40 minutes the way he wants to play on the basketball court. But the demand that he puts on you, man, and the excellence that he demands is second to none. He's a great coach, great X's and
Mhm.
O's super motivator. I think that's his best trait, his best attribute. He's a wonderful basketball mind, but his ability to motivate young men to play not only for something other than themselves, but to play better than what they can even fathom thinking they could play,
Right.
pushing their body and their minds beyond their limits. I think that's a key attribute and some of his best qualities.
It's interesting because last year, because he's at St. John's right now, correct?
Hmm. Hmm.
Last year, I guess someone had videotaped him in the locker room at halftime, and that went viral.
Viral.
And I was listening to it, and it was about, hey, you've got to move on. You may mess up or something, but you've got to move on because that's the way life is. You just need to keep on going. I
Right.
was motivated by it. Like, it is interesting how some people can just have that natural motivating factor that they give out, and you're just inspired no matter who it is. And I can't even imagine hearing that every day.
Yeah, he's driven, man. One thing about if you get in a room with Coach, Coach can convince you that you can run through a brick wall. And after you listen to him, you're like, he can convince you that, yeah, I probably can run and bust through
Right.
that brick wall. And man, he's just a great guy at getting you to believe. Like in the viral clip that he told those young men, he's always big on next play. Yeah,
Yes,
because if you're thinking about the mistake, then it's going to hinder the next play. Then you're going to make two
exactly.
mistakes. And so he always had this, he wants you to have this goldfish mentality. Forget it, move on to the next play because you're always going to make mistakes. And I think the key ability when you're a basketball player and you play for Rick Pitino is understanding that
Mm,
you can't achieve perfection, but striving for it every day. Once you can grasp your mind around that concept that you want to strive for perfection, understanding that it's impossible, but you still have the drive to try to get
right,
there. I think that's half the battle. And he is such a perfectionist that he wants everything to be perfect, understanding that it's not, but
right.
striving for it. That's the key factors, when playing for him. And so if you can understand that and really understand the work ethic and being able to push your mind
Mm.
past what the body tells you, then yeah.
How do you think his philosophy and that motivation helped you after you retired in getting back up every day and trying to figure out what you wanted to do next?
Oh man, you know what? It created great habits. It
Mm,
created great mantras. And you always think back because you get 4 years of a coach just repeating the same thing
right,
over and over and over to you. And so you get to a point where it's almost kind of like a uh
right,
self-governing of you automatically know in a situation like, yeah, this is what coach would say. Don't worry about it. Next thing, you got to move on. You make a mistake, face it, get over it, and get to
right.
the next thing. Or man, like just taking care of your body, taking care of your health.
Mm,
You work out so much that's like, it just gives you like this mental appreciation of um and just, when you're working out, getting a feeling of accomplishment, keeping yourself in good health. And,
right.
now I work out 4 days a week, lifting weights, running, and just the way you were able to physically get yourself in shape, the way you were able to just maximize your being, just as a human, and from physically working out to challenging yourself to pushing yourself to competing with everything you do, setting goals. All of that just kind of really, got hammered home with
Right.
him, and so he just creates all of these different habits that you know that are from basketball but carry over into
Sure.
life. And so, man, it's just a wonderful experience that I was fortunate and blessed enough to be able to play for him. He just carry some of those things with me.
So when you entered college, did you have what was your thought process about what you wanted to do after college?
Well, I wanted to play in the NBA. That
Right.
was that was the one thing, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to go and play for him because I knew he was helping produce guys being able to make it and play at the next level. Um, so I really wanted to come in and give my all and try to do that. But I also knew that I wanted to be a businessman as well.
Okay.
When you look at so many other successful people that have gone through the program and what they're doing now, you always hear the stories of athletes who when the ball stops, like they're just lost. They don't know what to
Yes.
do. And that was always a fear factor for me. And that fear kind of drove me to wanting to set up a plan as a safety net. So
Right.
if basketball didn't work out, guess what? I want to make sure that, I could have things set up or have things in play to where once I finish, I can still go and be successful. And
Right.
so that was one of the things in school. I wanted to get my degree in accounting. I got a degree in accounting. I felt like I was great at numbers.
Right.
Math was just something that just came easy to me. I understood making both sides equal in debits and credits for accounting. And so I'm like, this is great. There's always going to be a demand for it.
Yes.
I'll always be able to find a job. And I'm like, so if I'm here, I might as well grab that degree. So where if something else fails, I can always fall back and get a job with accounting. And so that was my mindset, being able to maximize myself with the opportunity to try to play in the NBA or play professionally. And if not, set myself up to where,
Right.
I could be successful off the court too.
It's interesting. I always love to ask everybody what their degrees were, what they were majoring in when they went into college. And
Hmm.
um, in accounting, I think you're actually the first one who has mentioned accounting. There have
Well,
been
that
a
was,
cou- there have been a couple of interesting ones, but I haven't had an accountant yet.
well, leaving high school, that I didn't go into college say I wanted to do accounting. I love architecture and engineering. That was what
Ah,
I wanted to do. I really
right.
wanted to try to go to speed school, but trying to be a collegiate athlete and
Okay,
trying
wait a
to
minute.
go
You wanted to go to what school?
speed schools. It's school, University of Louisville. The
Oh, okay.
speed school is called the School of Engineering. It's called the Speed School.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so it just wasn't enough time. It was just too
Yeah.
much demand from engineering, too much demand from basketball, and it just both worlds would have just clashed. And
Yeah.
so I had to settle for an alternative. And I'm like, well, what's the next best thing? What am I good at? So
Mm,
I start picking through different industries, different fields, and I was like, okay, accounting, like I can go with accounting. And so that was why I fell back with accounting. But originally, I love structure. I love
yeah.
architecture. When I was a little kid, I used to always take popsicle sticks and I would build like these building structures and bridges. So I always had a fixation for like fixing things or putting structures and things together.
Right.
So um, that was my initial plan. But again, things had to adjust and I had to, pivot a little bit once you find out the demands of becoming a
Right.
student athlete at the collegiate level.
I have another friend. He went in as an engineering major, and about a year in, basketball made him really decide what do you want
Yep.
to do, and
Yep.
it wasn't engineering. So let's talk about, you go through the college experience and playing in your hometown. I mean, that has to be incredible.
It it is. It's a double-edged sword.
It is.
It's a double-edged sword.
being
um,
being here in Memphis, I can only imagine what it's like in Louisville.
yeah, and so I always tell people, man, it's great because you get to play in front of your family, you get to play in front of your friends, but there's a lot of pressure that comes with that
It
too.
does.
It is. It's a lot of pressure. For the first part, things were going well. When things aren't going well, for the team and for you
Mm,
individually, and it's like you got to go out and here in Louisville, Kentucky, you are the pro team. So when you walk out,
right.
everybody knows who you are. Everybody wants to stop, take pictures, autographs. People want to talk about games. And so when things aren't going the way you want them to go, when you go out, everybody's your assistant coach. You got 1.5 million assistant coaches in the city of Louisville telling you what you need to do and what's
Exactly.
going on. And it's like as an 18-year-old kid, it's different now.
Mm,
Now I'm in my 40s, but an 18-year-old kid, sometimes you don't know how to handle that
yeah,
because
exactly.
it's a lot of pressure. Like you don't want to hear that. And you're like, okay, yeah, I know that, but I don't need you to tell me because one person will come up and tell you, and it's like, well, I only told you one time, but it's like, yeah, but like you only see me once, but I see like
Right.
I see 20,000
Yes.
of you. So
Yes.
it's not like I'm just having this conversation with you. I'm having a conversation with you, and then I take another 5 or 6 steps. The same person is coming to say have the same conversation. So after a while, man, it can be it could be way for on you,
Right.
man. It could be a burden, and so it could be tough. It could be a lot of pressure, but at the same time, when things are going well, man, you have 20,000
Yeah.
people that are really cheering for you, love you, pat you on the back, telling you great job. And so, man, I think the good outweighs the tough
Mhm.
times for sure. But it's a lot of pressure. People wanting to come see you play, trying to get tickets for
Yeah.
everybody. Family wanting to come see you play. Everybody's wanting your time. Everybody's trying to get you to make an appearance. Come speak here. Come do this. Can you
Right.
come say hi to them? Can you call this person? Can you? And it's a lot that comes with being in your hometown as too. But I think it's more good than bad, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, absolutely that. Going into your senior year was unbelievable. You guys went to the Final Four.
Yep.
Um, and I was reading some of because this was the 20th year of it, 20th anniversary.
Hmm.
Um, and I was reading some of the newspaper articles and listening to some of the video of you guys, talking about that. And um, I can't remember the exact quote that Pitino said, but he was like, "You guys were like the hardest, grittiest, best team, he'd had," and just that excitement. So talk just a little bit about how the previous year ended in the tournament, and then kind of your perspective of it leading up to the Elite Eight in the Final Four game for
So
2005.
so my junior year, I'll give you two perspectives. I'll give you the team perspective, and I'll give you
Right.
my personal perspective. So from a team perspective, my junior year, we had a pretty good year. We had Francisco Garcia, we had Luke Whitehead, we had Taekwon Dean,
Mm.
and two really good sophomores that kind of led our team. They were
Right.
coming off excellent freshman years. Francisco was projected NBA player, so he had a lot of pressure on him. And so this was really our first year without our All American because we had played with Reese Gaines for 2 years. And so
Mm.
this was the year that we didn't have Reese Gaines. So we were really trying to find our DNA and our identity of how we want to make up our team and who
Right.
was going to step up and kind of be the guys on the team. And so, man, we had a really good year. I think we got up to number two in the country. We beat Kentucky in Rupp Arena that year. And I think that surprised a lot of people. We beat Florida that year. We beat two number one teams back to back weeks. And so, man, it was a really fun year. We end up losing to Xavier in the first round of the NCAA tournament with Romain Sato and Lionel Chalmers,
Mm.
two excellent backcourt players. But it was a good year for our team and really establishing, kind of like the hierarchy on the team.
Right.
Now, for me, that previous year was really a confidence building year because my sophomore year was kind of a down year where I was kind of in the doghouse. Things didn't necessarily go my way. And as we kind
Right.
of talked about in the previous question, kind of being in that hometown when things aren't
Right.
going your way and you're kind of in the doghouse, you're getting into it with the coach, and everybody's trying to ask you questions about what's going on, why you're not playing. And so coming into that junior year, I got my starting position back, and I really wanted to establish myself, my own confidence first and foremost that I belonged, I deserved, and also just establishing my trust with the coach again, right? Because I felt like
Sure.
that trust had been gone from the previous year, and so my junior year was really about just gaining momentum and gaining self confidence back. And so I was able to do that, man. I averaged right over 10 points a game. And so it was a good confidence builder for me going into
Right.
my senior year. And so going into my senior year, my confidence was kind of full blown back. We had everybody coming back. We had the top three scorers, myself, Taekwon Dean, Francisco coming back. We had another redshirt guy, Ellis Miles, who had been injured the previous year. So he redshirted, and so he
Right.
was coming back. And we had some other experienced guys and some really good incoming freshmen. So we felt good about the year. Like we felt like we could make a deep run in the tournament and really have a good team this year, compete for a championship. And so going into the senior year, it was all about, just bonding. Everybody, we would all go to the movies together. We would all go out to eat together. Everybody loved Rafferty's. We would all go out to Rafferty's, get some hot wings. Um, we would go to high school basketball games together. We would go to the movies. Everything we did as a team. So it didn't matter if you were a star player or if you were to walk on, everybody hung out with
Right,
everybody. And I think that really built the camaraderie and built the togetherness and the cohesion of our team. And so, were we the most talented team in the NCAA that year? No, but we had good talent. But I think our camaraderie is what really helped us bond because everybody knew what everybody was doing. We all had our roles, we excelled in our roles. And I think that's really what helped us blossom, along with having guys that have been in Coach Pitino's system for 3 and 4 years. So
right,
we knew what to expect, we knew what he wanted, and like we knew the systems in and out. And from a mental and physical standpoint, we were at our peak. And
right.
so, man, it was really good for us. And I think we really maximized our abilities that year, and which ended up with us going to the Final Four.
It's interesting. That was one of the videos I watched where you were quoting Scottie Pippen about the hardest thing in basketball is everybody knowing their role or something
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
Um, and I've seen teams that don't necessarily know their role, and especially in the NIL era, this is really becoming an issue where um, I think players are just not coming at it from the right perspective, right?
Right.
Um, and I think that, if you talk about not just sports, but anything, business, anything, knowing your role and how everybody fits together, I think makes the group more cohesive, as you said.
Hmm.
And I think that, all of that really shows how if it's there, it can inspire the team. And not everybody can be the most talented, right? And talent alone is not going to win things. It's not going
Right.
to get you necessarily to the next level. It's all the other things that go with it. And I think Louisville 2005 is a great example of that. Just, sticking together and having all that. And, um, so from your perspective, going into the tournament, like how did you feel about that? Was there pressure? Like what were you thinking? Like any of that?
I don't think there was pressure. I think going into the NCAA tournament, I think we found motivation because we had won our conference championship and we had beat Memphis
Yes.
down in
Yes.
in
Yes,
the
you did.
tournament with the famous Darius Washington free throws.
Yes.
And so, we felt like we should have been a number one seed. We were ranked number six. I think we were ranked number 6 or 7 in the country.
Mm,
And we won our tournament, and some of the teams ahead of us had lost. So we felt like, we were in the right, position to position ourselves for a 1 seed in one of the
right.
regions. And we ended up getting a 4 seed. And
Mm,
so it just kind of lit a fire up under us, to be honest with you. Washington was a team that got the number 1 seed that
right.
we felt we should have had because Washington was behind us in the national polls. And we won our conference tournament, and we felt like we positioned ourselves to be a number 1 seed in the region.
Sure.
Well, they gave it to Washington, and they put us in the same region as Washington. So ultimately, we wanted to take care of business so that we could get an opportunity to play Washington to really kind of show Washington and show the NCAA, that they kind of messed up and that we had deserved that number 1 seed. And so ultimately, going into the tournament, I think the letdown or the lack of respect from our seeding standpoint ultimately provided that motivation. But even before the NCAA tournament, kind of going back to the Conference USA tournament,
Right.
we had won a Conference USA tournament my sophomore year, that year where I kind of told you I was in the doghouse.
Mm,
And so for me, from kind of going back to the personal perspective, I always felt like I didn't really contribute nothing to that. I was on the team, but I didn't really feel like I was a
right.
part of the team, right? And so like
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, yes, I was a champion, but I didn't feel like I earned it or deserved it or like I really contributed to that team.
Sure.
And so for me, going into the conference tournament, I really felt like this was a year of really just kind of a revenge. Would you say? I don't know if
Yeah,
revenge is the word, but
make
it
your
was,
statement, prove your
yeah,
point. Yeah,
yeah. It was a year for me to really kind of reassure myself that, like, hey, like I am a part of this. I'm a big contributor
sure,
in one, and I felt like I was a part of it. And so it was a big year for me to come back and reestablish myself as a part of the team and as part of a championship team. And so winning that Conference USA tournament was like a full circle moment for me to feel like now I'm a champion because I really contributed to this. I was
sure,
a big part of it. And like this was like a full circle moment for me. So the attitude, the psychology going into it was just different from the first one that
sure.
we had won. And it felt so much fuller inside once you won that championship. So heading into the NCAA tournament, man, it was we were confident, we were riding high, and then just not getting the seeding that we wanted just added more fuel to the fire.
Sure. And going through, so let's go to that Final Four game. I mean, that had to be incredible experience.
It was. It was. You want to talk about moments that, you know, 20 years ago and somebody talks to me about it at least once or twice every other week. Somebody's coming
Right.
up and wanting to talk about the West Virginia game. But just because of the stakes in the moment of what was
Mm.
on the line. And I remember in that game, they were hitting everything. They jumped on us. And the one thing I always tell people, like, man, I didn't get a shot in the first half. People like, man, I didn't get a shot. I
Uh,
was like, man, man, Francisco and Taekwondo took all the shots. I didn't get a shot in the first half. So I'm coming in at halftime and I'm like, man, we're down 20. I said, guess what? I said, if I'm going out, I'm going out guns
that's the
blazing.
attitude to
Yeah,
have.
I'm going out guns blazing. And it was funny because we were in at halftime, and that was probably the first time I really seen Coach Pitino at a loss for words.
Really?
He was at a loss for words. There was a lot of silence in the halftime, and Senior Ellis Miles got up and spoke, and he started calling a couple of people. He called me out, told me I needed to get my head out of you know what, and he was right, and he was right, and that lit another fire up under me because he
Right.
he put me on blast, and then I was already mad I didn't get any shots, and so man, we came out in the second half, and I just remember every time I got it, I shot it, and every time I shot it, it seemed like it went in, and we started pressing and warmed down. And we were able to kind of walk the score back a little bit and get it to overtime. And once we got into overtime, we felt like we were the better team, and so that just
Right.
played into our hands. We felt like we were the better conditioned team, and so Taekwon was cramping up, Francisco fouled out, and man, the other guys on the team just stepped up, and just kind of goes back to that initial conversation that we had about the cohesion and the
Yes.
trust that
Yes.
we had in
Yes.
all of our teammates, and just the competitiveness that we all had from a practice standpoint. It's just the next man up, and they were able to feel the shoes, man, in the big moments, and helped us get back to a Final Four. Something that we'll always have stories about and be able to tell our kids about.
Absolutely, you will. I heard, like, I think it was one of the things, the videos that you talked about, all of you are still on group chat.
Yes,
20
yes.
years later, all
20
still on.
years later, we're all still in the group chat. Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that. I do. Because you're right. It's not just about having those moments, but it's about taking those experiences and those people and continuing on. And I think that's just a beautiful thing. I get emotional about stuff like that. But I
yeah.
I love that though. And I look at when I was doing the research, I looked at like 2005 as like being a pivotal year for you. You had highs and you had lows. And after the Final Four game, obviously, I'm guessing you guys were devastated. I can only imagine. How do you take that and immediately translate into, okay, now I have to prepare for the draft?
Real talk. I want to help more people like you show up online with confidence, starting with your LinkedIn profile. If your profile still reads like a job history instead of a reflection of who you are now, we need to fix that. I offer a LinkedIn makeover service where I rewrite your headline, your about section, and your experience to tell your story in a way that gets noticed, that showcases your expertise. It's personal, it's real, and it's all about helping you stand out for the right reasons. Book your makeover at sandy-adams.com/LinkedIn, and let's get your profile working for you.
Um, I think obviously when the games ended, you're distraught. And I think it was more so for us because we felt like we were just as good as the team
Sure.
that we lost to. I
Yeah.
think if you take that 2005 Illinois team, who had some great
Mm,
players, and they were sort of set up and built just like we were. They had three strong guards, two big
right.
guys that kind of done a little bit of everything, but they were guard dominated like we were. I feel like if you we played those guys 10 times, they would win 5 games and we would win 5 games.
Right.
And it just so happened that night, man, we didn't make shots and they did. And I think from a standpoint of when you think about it in that manner, it's like, man, like we could have beat them. They got the better of us, but man, we could have
Yeah.
beat them. And I think that was the tough part after the game.
Mm,
Now, if we'd have beat them, it'd have been tough for us to beat Carolina. Carolina was a great team that year. It'd have been tough for us to beat them. But to answer your question, I mean, it was tough, and you regroup, you say all your hugs, you talk to the guys, and I think maybe 24 to 48 hours after that, you kind of look at it and like, man, you think about the great things that you were
yeah.
able to accomplish because you're like, hey, after this game, everybody's season's over. It's only one more game. There's only two more teams playing after
Exactly.
us. Everybody's
Exactly.
season's over. And so, man, you just think of being able to extend your season and play and practice longer than everybody else except for two teams and finish up number 3 in the polls for the year. Like, man, that's a great feat. That's a great
Sure it
accomplishment, man.
is.
So you can look back and smile upon that. Obviously as a competitor, you don't think about it in the moment, but as time passes, it sinks in the things you were able to accomplish. Man, it feels pretty good. But after that, you don't have long. You have to decide. Are you going to hire an agent? What do you want to do with that? And start preparing. How you're going to prepare for the draft? Having conversations with your coach about advice on things that you could do. Usually that takes place about a week after that game.
Right.
So you never want to let yourself get out of shape. So right after that, you always continue to go back, to your gym with your
Mm.
coaches. You stay in shape and just make sure that you're getting ready to do all the things that you need to do to get ready for workouts and NBA pre-drafts.
So going into the draft, um, you went undrafted in 2005.
Hmm.
What was your plan before the draft? Like, going into it, and then what did you decide to do afterwards?
So my first thing again, I had to find out who was going to be my agent. So I
Okay.
had some referrals. I had a few people that played in the NBA, a few friends that I would call and ask for advice or referrals
Right.
to. I had a few, different agents that had reached out to me, and so a lot of times, when I took some time to interview the different people that I wanted to represent me.
Right.
And so once I finally settled down on the person that I wanted to represent, now it was time for me to sit down with this agent and talk about a plan that I wanted to do leading up to the NBA draft. And so I ended up moving out to Santa Monica, California for about a month and just training for the draft. Practice
Right.
twice a day, eating, lifting weights, playing, doing workouts. Then I would fly and work out with different teams. I'll have workouts at the gym in Santa Monica with different teams coming in. So it was a great thing and leading up to the draft. And then, obviously once the draft came, I didn't get drafted.
Right.
That was kind of disappointing. You've worked for so long to really hear
Exactly.
your name get called on
Yeah.
draft night and it didn't. So it was kind of disheartening. But again, going back to Pitino, it's
Yeah.
like, well, things didn't go your way. Put your hard cap on, strap your boots up, and go back to work. That's the
That's right.
mentality, right? Not hanging your head. He is very, very adamant about not having head hangers. That is a big pet peeve of
Yeah.
his, not hanging your head, right? And so it's like, all right, now, we got to get back to work. And that's it. And now it's time to go and get ready for summer league, find out, what summer league team you're going to play in, and go and do work and show people why they, did a mistake of not drafting you. And so that was my mentality after that.
I get two follow-up questions. The first
Yep.
is I would love to know your thought process on how you picked your agent.
Okay. So the first thing I wanted to do was I just wanted to come off. The first thing I was looking for, who sounded most genuine. I
Right.
just wanted somebody who was going to be honest and not tell me what I wanted to hear. And so I ended up selecting a guy named Mike Higgins. Mike Higgins he was representing one of my friends that I ended up playing with, that was playing in the NBA. He had already had NBA clients.
Mm.
And when he told me, he said, "Hey, listen," he said, "I'm not sure if you're going to get drafted." He said, "I think you could take the momentum that you've had this year and that you've had in the NCAA tournament. I think you can do a lot of great things." He said, "I've had a couple other clients that weren't going to get drafted that got into the pre-draft workouts
Right.
and worked their way in to get drafted." He said, "Hey, but we're going to position you." He said, "We will put you in Santa Monica, work you out in front of scouts every day." And he said, "And we're going to, make you a lot of money." And so just the fact that he was just honest with me about, like, when he said, "Man, I don't know if you're gonna get drafted." He said,
Yeah.
"We're gonna do everything we can to get you drafted." He said, "I think there's potential." He said, "But I'm not for sure." He said,
Sure.
"I'm not sitting here telling you you're gonna be like a first round or a late second round pick." He said, "Because I don't know." He said, "But we're gonna do everything we can." And that's all I was looking for. It was honesty, man. And
Right.
like I said, it didn't get drafted, but still had good workouts and still had a good plan. It just wasn't in the cards.
So the second question to that was, um, how did you get picked for the summer league? Because you did participate in the summer league that
Mhm,
year. So how
mhm.
did you get picked for that?
So, the team that I ended up playing with, the summer league team, was a team that I had a in pre-draft
Okay.
workout with, Seattle Supersonics, and I had a really, really good workout with them. I did really well, and so as soon as the draft was over, they reached out to my agent and said, "Hey, we'd like to bring him in for a closer look and
Right.
get him in to play with our summer league team." And so that's who I ended up playing summer league with, and I did really well. I did really well. Just the tough part about that year, they had 7 free agents. They had a coach that they wasn't sure if they were going to bring back, and there was a lot of uncertainty
That
around that
is.
organization at that time. Now I could have waited, and because I think that I would have got an invite to training camp because I played well. I was like the second or third leading scorer in the summer league.
Right.
And so, but a team from Europe came and offered me a lot more money. And once I seen the amount that they offered, I'm like, yeah, I'm probably gonna take the money and go. I think my parents really wanted me to try for the NBA, and I said, "Well, I'm gonna take this money and go and and do what I do." And I know they have a lot of scouts over there, so they'll be able to watch me play. And I said, "I'll come back and have a summer league next year." And so I ended up going and playing in Red Star, Belgrade, Serbia for Red Star my first year. But that was the answer to your second question.
So let's talk about those many years that you played overseas.
Hmm.
And what was I'm not going to go through every team that you played with, but what country was the best to play in? All right, before we get into the next topic, I want to take a quick moment to tell you about something that can really help you level up your personal brand. I've created an exclusive new book called The Visionary Personal Brand Playbook. It's perfect for those of you who have big goals but aren't exactly sure how to make your brand stand out, or for that matter, where to even start. It's packed with actionable tips that you can start using right now, today. If you're interested, head over to my website at sandy-adams.com/playbook and grab your copy. Now back to the show.
From a basketball standpoint, I would say Red Star.
Mm.
Belgrade, Serbia was probably the best basketball. Um, when you see guys like Jokovic, when you see guys like Drazen Petrovic, or you
Mm.
see guys, um, man, I'm trying to think of a few other Serbian guys. Um, Milosevic played with the Clippers
Right.
recently. But man, there were so many great basketball players there. And you see, it's almost like a basketball factory, the way they
Yeah.
work. And so I give you an example. Um, each practice, we practice twice a day. And at the end of practice, you could pick any spot that you want on the 3-point line, but you would have to make 10 threes in a row before you could leave.
Wow.
But I had never been anyplace else in my life that had made me do that. And so like you really got to stay there until you can make 10 in a row. But just little drills like that, it's like, man, like it's precision, it's efficiency.
Right.
And I had another drill. The coach knew I was a really good athlete. He knew I was a really good shooter. He said, but you're not really that great at creating your own shot.
Mm.
And so he would take the best young defender and he would make me play one on one after all the practices. And he would tell the young defender, he said, I don't want you to let him shoot threes. But he would tell me, he said, but you cannot score in the paint. And so when I would catch the ball, when I would check the ball, we play one on one, the young guy is up on me and I can't just shoot the ball. So
Right.
I would have to drive. So when I'm driving, I can't drive all the way to the basket. Now I have to stop and learn how to create my shot in between the three and the paint. And so, man, just like little drills like that, it's like, man, it really helped to expand my game because I
Right.
didn't really have a second level, what they call a second level to your game.
Hmm.
First level is getting to the basket and being able to dunk, finish with a layup. Second level is being able to create your shot around the foul line or in between,
Right.
15 to 13-foot range. And the third level, obviously, is the 3-point line and being able to
Right.
shoot from there. But I didn't really have much of a second level to my game. And so he put these drills in to really help me create the second level to my game.
Right.
And man, when you just think about all of the basketball knowledge and practice and savants that they have there, man, it was second to none playing
Right.
basketball there. Now, as far as outside of basketball, living life and someplace I would love to live, probably Tel Aviv, Israel. That was probably my favorite place. I
Uh,
love Tel Aviv, Israel.
those are some. My undergrad was in the Middle East in politics, and the whole area, and it always fascinates me when because back then I didn't really pay attention to pro basketball overseas at all. Like I didn't even like in my concept, I didn't even think that happened.
Right.
Um, but to learn about all of those teams and leagues over there, and just
Mhm.
I think the one that surprised me the most was Beirut. I'm like, Beirut has been in this huge civil war for years,
Yeah.
and then you've got this basketball league that's going on over there, pro ball, and it's
Yeah.
just amazing. Um,
Mhm.
but so what did you take out of all of those years? How do you think that made you a better person?
You know what, man? I think it made me more well-rounded. I think
Mm,
it broadened my horizons of how I see the world, how I see people.
right.
It also enhanced my knowledge of culture
Mm,
and just my understanding of how the world is viewed outside of America and
yeah.
how it can be tainted living in
Yes.
America and living every place else. I give you a quick example. Um, when I first went to Serbia, I was going to McDonald's and I ordered me something to eat, and I was sitting down and I finished my drink and I went back up to get a refill. And it's like,
Right.
we don't do refills here. This is not America. You don't do refills. And I was like, oh man. I was like, okay. And I remember another instance, I was at practice and I was so frustrated because everybody was speaking Serbian and I couldn't understand anything that was going on. And I was like, man, English, speak English, speak English. And they was like, no, you need to learn Serbia. You need to learn Serbian. You're like, you're in Serbia. You live in Serbia
Right.
now. It's like, we don't come to America and just because we don't understand, tell you to start learning and speaking Serbian. No, if
Right.
you're going to live here, you need to learn the language. And it just kind of took this lens off of like, right, you need
Right.
to ingrace yourself and ingrain yourself in the culture. And like almost kind of like took this American arrogance off of me,
Yes.
if you will say that it's like, okay, no, everything doesn't revolve around how you think it should be in America.
Mhm.
Like you have to adapt yourself to how you are, where your feet are, right? And so
Right.
I think once I kind of took that lens off and really ingrained myself in the culture of trying to um, learn languages, embrace yourself, trying new foods, meeting new people, trying and learning about the history and traditions of each country, man, it just made those experiences that much more better.
Right. When did you start thinking about life after basketball or after playing competitively?
I always thought about it, but I probably really start putting plans into action probably my ninth or 10th year playing
Mm,
because
okay.
I knew that I was kind of at the climax and about ready to start the backside of my career. And so I've always been interested in real estate and investing.
Right.
And so I've been kind of reading up on it for years and just kind of learning, jotting notes. Rich Dad Poor Dad was probably my first book that I read
Yes.
about that. Rich Dad Poor Dad. Then I started reading The Richest Man in Babylon. So I started reading all these different finance books about learning how to invest in the different things. And so I'd always had that plan in the back of my mind and was curious about it, but I probably really didn't start putting it into play till I turned 30.
Okay. And what how did that decision come? Like, did you just wake up one day and say today's it, or were there other circumstances that led up to making that
Uh,
retirement official?
you know what? I had been wanting to do it, wanting to jump into it. And what really pushed me was I was playing in France and I had an older teammate who was already into investing into housing and real estate.
Right.
And we were having a conversation and we were just shooting basketball after practice. We were just getting some extra shots up and we were just having a conversation while we were shooting. And he said the same thing to you. What's stopping you? Why haven't you done it?
Yeah.
And I said, I I don't know. I don't feel like I know everything. And he's like, you're not going to know
You're
everything.
never,
He said, you're not
never,
going to know.
you're
He said, you're
never
not
gonna
going to
know.
know everything. He said, but the fundamentals and foundation of what you need to know, you already know because you're telling me. He
Hmm.
said, well, I already have a system set up. He said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to forward you these documents and all of this structure and elements that I have to set it up. And I'm going to forward it to you. He said, but you need to go ahead and get started. And so right after that, there was a recession in the market,
Hmm.
and the housing market really dropped down. This was like 2012, and the housing market, some of the housing prices were just
Right.
completely plummeted. And I said, you know what? I said I'm going to do it, and I just went in. I bought one. It didn't seem like a outrageous amount of money at the time. I said, man, I couldn't believe the price. I'm like, man, you go buy a house for like $10,000, $15,000. I'm like, man, this is crazy. And so I said, you know what? Let's try it. And I had been playing for a few years. I've been smart with my money. I'd saved up some, and I said, I can afford to
Right.
to try it. And so tried it and never looked back. Never looked back. And all because of a teammate that just starting to just kind
Right.
of pushed me like, what are you waiting for? And when he sent me like the paperwork and documents, he said, this is what you need to do, and kind of really helped me with how he was doing it and gave me the experience. That was it for me. And that was the kind of final push that I need with everything else falling into play with the
Right.
market going down in the pricing. I said, well, these prices not going to be forever. I said, so this must be a sign for me to just
Right.
go ahead and jump in. And so that was the ultimate push that got me going.
And did you retire like soon after that, or was it a couple of years?
No, so no, I ended up retiring 8 years after that.
Wow.
8 years after that. Yeah.
When did you know it was completely ready, like you were done playing? Like, was there a moment you woke up and you're like, okay, this, I'm done with this?
I knew the time was coming for the last couple of years because living in Europe, in South America, I was by myself, and I just started, I started thinking about my age. I started thinking about marriage, kids, my mom and dad getting older,
Yeah.
and my mind just started to drift other places other than where I was at. And
Mm,
I started finding myself getting tired of practice, and I'm like, I love playing in the games, and I'm like, man, I don't feel like practicing today, and just like
yeah.
you could see the drive starting
Sure.
to fall off a little bit. The competitiveness was still there for the games, but like the work ethic of putting in practice every day, it was starting to become mundane and redundant for me, and I'm like,
Sure.
I don't know. And so I remember my last game, I was running, and it was a young man on a break, and I was trying to run and catch him to do a back tip, get a back steal, and I couldn't catch him. And I said, yeah, this is it. And normally I'm pretty good at closing games, like in the fourth quarter, making big
Right.
shots, and like it just was not what it needed to be. And I'm like, yeah, this is probably it for me. It's not it's not going like I want. I'm like, I can't even catch the guy with the ball in the break, and my mind is not completely here. I'm like, yeah, this is probably time for me to go ahead and hang it up while my body's still in one piece, and
Sure.
I don't have any significant injuries or anything like that. It's probably time for me to go ahead and hang it up. And so, that was what I did. That was what I did.
How did you so you retired from pro ball. How did you transition back into the States? Was that a hard process for you?
Um, well, for me, it was about deciding what I wanted to do. I always knew I wanted to go into coaching.
Right.
I started, you know, when I would come back home, I would sit in meetings with Coach Pitino. Me and him would have conversations, about, hey, I'm near the end of my career, but I want to go into coaching.
Sure.
You're coaching in my hometown. I played here. Like, I understand I'm gonna have to work my way up, but I want the opportunity to get my foot in the door to go into coaching. So coaching was what I wanted to do. And then in 2017, when things went left, and ultimately he was forced to leave. That kind of threw a wrench in my plans, and I'm like,
Sure.
okay, now what am I going to do now? I knew I still wanted to coach, but life had just done different things. I got married, I had a fiance now, well, wife now, and it's like I had to consider a bunch of other things besides myself,
Exactly.
because I had been living with myself by myself for 36, 37 years, and like now I have to really consider somebody else when I'm making these decisions. So when I retired, I started coaching high school, and when I was coaching, I had my first two boys. Well, my only two boys, but I had my first son, then I had a second one. And then the time commitment for coaching and
Mm,
then having boys and
yeah.
my wife, it was a lot. And then the pandemic happened. And it was just like this perfect storm of things, just like, well, I just need to take a step back for a
Sure.
second and just and then relax. And so at the time we were living in Atlanta, and I always knew I was going to move back to Louisville. And so we moved back to Louisville so that we could be around family and have support with our two boys. And I was like, I need to find something that's close to basketball, but maybe not as time consuming. And so that's when I started podcasting and, trying to get into the broadcasting world and things like that. So it's been great. Obviously, when my boys get a little bit older and they really start
Right.
getting into basketball, I'll get back into coaching with them. But yeah, I missed a lot of time with my own family, playing overseas for so long,
Mm,
And so
Yeah.
I don't want to miss that time with my own boys. So that really means a lot to me. So as they start to get older and get more into basketball, I'll probably get back into coaching with them.
What was or was there what was the hardest part about leaving the pro athlete person and becoming a regular person now?
To be honest, I don't think it was hard for me. I think for me, I had reached the moment to where I kind of got burnt out of
Yeah.
basketball. And so people ask me to this day, like, man, you don't go and play. I'm like, no, I walk in the gym and walk right past the basketball. Walk right past it. And like, I might pick it up and shoot a jump shot, but like I'll shoot and keep it moving. Like I don't like I've exhausted every bounce
Right.
of the ball that was within me. Now I love sharing knowledge. I love sharing my experiences and things that I've learned. But as far as my desire to play, like I felt like it was the right thing because I don't have any regrets. I don't have any well wishes of going back to
Right.
play and nothing like that. So like I retired with my body in one piece, and I think that I got everything that I could out of my body. And so it wasn't hard for me to really transition because it was probably something that I was kind of looking forward to.
Yeah.
Uh, like I said, because the last few years I didn't really feel like practicing. It was probably more so a relief. Like, man, I don't have to practice every day. I have to beat up my body. But the next thing was just trying to really figure out what I was passionate about besides basketball because I loved coaching, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to coach with a young family. So then that was the toughest part for me. Well, what's going to fill that void, but still
Right.
not going to be as demanding? And
Right.
so, getting to broadcasting and teaching people about what they're watching and during basketball game has filled that void for me. So that's what I love to do.
So let's talk about that podcast. It's
Mhm.
called The Player's Perspective Uncensored with Larry O'Bannon.
Yep.
And am I correct that you have bourbon as a part of the podcast?
It is. And so the first thing we always ask our guests is, if they drank bourbon, if so, what's their favorite, what's their go-to? And we have like a bourbon selection of the day too. So we'll have a taste testing of
Right.
whatever the bourbon is that we like, and we'll give our reviews on it and what we think it tastes like, the palates and the notes and how it feels on the tongue. So we give this pseudo breakdown of what we think, just kind of put on our Bourbonista hat for a minute
Right.
and just kind of break it down, but just a little twist of something different.
Sure.
When I was thinking about the podcast, I'm like, you have a lot of people that talk about sports and talk about
Exactly.
ball, but like
Exactly.
nobody really combines the two. And when I first started the podcast, I it was my first time really getting into bourbon. I'm like, I've always lived here, and people always ask me about it. I'm like, but I don't really know much about it. I didn't really drink it, and so I went on my first bourbon tour down to Wolford, down
Hmm.
in Versailles, and I loved it. And I just started just getting inquisitive, reading, and wanting to learn about it. And
Right.
so during these different bourbon tastings and things like that, you have a bottled in bond, or you'd have this barrel proof, and you start learning about these different types of bourbons, and you just you start learning and reading, and man, it just became kind of an infatuation with the bourbon knowledge. And so being able to speak bourbon and talk bourbon and asking guests about it and what their preference is, man, it's just kind of giving a unique twist to the podcast.
What is your favorite bourbon?
Oh man, it's probably a tie between Stag Junior and Willis Reserve 107,
Uh,
Antique 107. It's probably my
okay.
top two, but Woodford Reserve Double Oak is probably the bourbon that really got me going. That was my first love. And so that'll always hold a special place for me. It's always one that I go to on a regular. But my favorite is probably Stag Junior or Antique Willis 107.
Okay. So for those out there that maybe are interested in learning more about bourbon, what would you recommend as the first one for them to, or the top three for them to test or taste?
The first one I would say is Woodford Reserve Double Oak. That was the
Okay.
very first one that I would advise them to taste. Another one, Castag Jr. and Antique 107 is going to be hard to find because they're allocations and they don't
Listen to
come out.
you.
They don't, yeah, they don't come
That's
out
way
that
over my.
often, and they're hard to find. But everyday bourbons that you can really go in and find on the shelf, I would say Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. Another one of my everyday favorites is Mitcher Sour Mash. It's not technically considered a bourbon because of the mash bill. They reuse the mash, but
Right.
it's made from the same ingredients and the same mash bill. So in my eyes, it is a bourbon, even though they can't technically label it a bourbon. But
Okay.
Mitcher Sour Mash, Woodford Reserve Double Oaked, and I would say Four Roses Single Barrel.
Okay. Um,
Those are great starters.
what has been the most challenging part of you being a podcast host?
Um, for me, it's probably time and production.
Mm,
That is the most consuming because I was in grad school. I was trying to podcast, and I had a young family, and
yeah,
trying to find time for all three of those was probably the
it
toughest.
is. Yeah.
The next thing I'll probably say is just getting on people's schedule.
Yeah.
Just getting on people's schedule to podcast. That's probably the toughest. But now that I have a co-host that helps me with my production, just allocating things to different people, it makes it a lot easier.
Um, I would say that for me as well. I was trying to do one a week and it was just too much because it's just me.
Yeah.
Although when I started it, it was with Michael Wilson, who played for Memphis and the Harlem
Yep.
Globetrotters.
Yep.
Um, so, that for me, and I try to make it as simple a process as possible. Like, I've
Mhm.
had people go, "Oh, you need to do this with your video." No, I don't have time for all that.
Right.
I do what I can do. You want to do it for free for me? Okay.
Right.
Um, so who has been the most interesting guest for you?
The most interesting guest. Oh man, I've had some really good guests
Yeah.
on my podcast,
I
man.
got the same question asked to me the other day and I could not answer. I could not.
Oh man, probably the most exciting person that I've had. Man, I don't want to slight anybody because I've
I
had some
know, right?
I've had some really, really, really cool. Sean Kelly was great because he's a guy that played with the Yankees. He played with Ken Griffey Jr., who was one of my favorites. Um, Rajon Rondo, obviously two-time champion, played with
Yeah.
the Celtics and Lakers. Having him on, Samaki Walker was a great one because it was so many things I wanted to ask him about, and that man, he was just an open book to talk to. Obviously, Daryl Griffith, who's a legend around here, but probably Jay Billis was probably my most exciting podcast. Man, I was so excited because he's somebody that I have a deep reverence for. Uh,
Sure.
that also in the broadcasting field that I really study and try to emulate in some of my ways that I do broadcasting. But you want to talk about a guy that was just down to earth, just a great, just
Yeah.
one of the guys. That's the best way to describe it. Just one of the guys, man. Um, but I would probably say, I'll probably say the Samaki Walker podcast is probably
Okay.
the most intriguing one. The most
Okay.
intriguing one.
I'll
Oh,
have to go listen to your podcast. And for all of you out there, you can find it on Spotify and YouTube.
yep. Apple Podcasts, anywhere, any platform that you watch
Right.
your favorite, that you listen to your
That's
favorite podcast
that's
on.
right.
You can catch us on YouTube on the Players Perspective Uncensored podcast channel.
And I'll put the links in the show notes so everybody can find it as well. So just a few more. We're going to be wrapping up here.
Yep.
So, really, if you're looking at, the most challenging part of building your next chapter after retirement, what would you say that was?
Um, I guess the next part is really surrounding yourself with people who want to build
Mm,
like you want to build with, and just being efficient with your network, right? I think that's
right.
the thing
Yes.
about, people say you want to network, network, network. Yeah, you want to network, but you want to be efficient and
Mm-hmm.
be specific
Yes.
with your network, right? If you want to grow your podcast, or you want to grow your real estate investment, or you want to become a financial advisor. You need more clients that you're trying to attract. I think you have to be specific and target with your networking. So I'd say that's probably the toughest thing. Like for me, I want to build my broadcasting network, and
Mm,
so really trying to find different ways to build that and expand it at the same
sure.
time,
Sure.
to create more opportunities and create more relationships that you can have. Because, regardless, there's a million talented people, but, I think the relationships that you have with
Yes.
people are, deciding factors on a lot of things. So you just want to try to, expand your network, be specific with your network, but also have genuine relationships with the people that you network with.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. Okay, what does success look like for you now?
Success, man, just having two healthy boys, a beautiful wife, having, healthy family, everybody in my family is healthy, being able to take my boys to basketball practice, having good health myself,
Sure.
working out every day, having peace of mind. I think that's success for me. I was blessed enough to be able to play for 15 years. Just kind of gave me a good jump start on life to be able to provide a good living for my family, and just having good health each and every day. I think people take that for granted. Um,
They do.
you don't have to be 80 or 90 years old to leave Earth. Like,
Yeah,
the
it's very true.
young people are leaving Earth. So I think, just being around good family, enjoying family time,
Mm.
especially, not just during the holiday season, but all the time, man. Just having good loved ones, gonna being a good family. I think that's what success is for me. Like I don't need all the money in the world. I don't have to have lavish things, but long as you have people that you come in the house and love you. When I walk in the house and my boys run around the corner and yell, "Dad, Dad," jump up and give me a big
Aw.
hug, and that's all I need. I don't need anything else.
How old are your boys?
3 and 5, just turned 5 and
Oh,
3.
wow. That's a
Yeah, they're
great that's a
giants too.
great age.
Yeah.
If you could go back and talk to your 9-year-old self, what would you tell him?
If I could go back and talk to my 9-year-old self, um, I would probably tell them to listen more.
Mm, okay.
Listen. Um, I would also tell him to probably tell him to read more. When I was 9, I didn't really enjoy reading a lot of that. I didn't really get into
Yeah.
reading until I got older.
Yeah.
But I would, definitely tell him to listen more and to read more. Um, but I would also tell him to enjoy his loved ones, enjoy the time that he has with his family, because I've lost some family members, when I was at an early age, and I would go back, to tell them to cherish moments with loved ones.
Really quickly, I want to do 5 like quick fire Q&A questions. The first one is the favorite city you have ever played in. I think you already answered that.
Favorite city I ever played in?
Yes.
Uh, yeah, it had to be Tel Aviv, Israel.
Okay.
Tel Aviv,
Okay.
Israel.
Favorite meal when you were on the road traveling?
Favorite meal when I was on the road traveling. Ah, man, I am a big steak guy, so
Okay.
I'd probably say a steak from Stony River was probably my favorite meal. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Your go-to exercise now.
Go-to exercise, bench press.
Okay.
Bench press is a good stress reliever for me.
Okay. One thing you can't live without okay. One thing you can't live without now since basketball is over.
One thing I can't live without. Since basketball is over, mm, probably sports.
Okay. Do you
Probably
follow a specific like who's your big team right now to watch?
the 49ers fan. I am a 49 San Francisco 49ers. I like the Chicago Cubs. I don't really have an NBA team. I like
Really?
I like watching certain players play. Like
Mm,
I was a big Dirk Nowitzki fan. I love
okay.
Dirk Nowitzki. Obviously, Ray Allen. Like I said in the beginning, Ray Allen was
Yes.
my favorite player, but I was a big Dirk fan. I like watching LeBron, but don't really have an NBA team. But I'm a big 49ers, big Cubs fan, Chicago
Okay.
Cubs
Okay. Last movie you watched?
fan. What's the movie with Michael B. Jordan?
There's many.
His latest one where he played two actors. Um,
Oh, the one that's like in the 1930s or something. I
yeah.
can't think of the name of it.
Um,
I know what you're talking about. It's going to drive me crazy now.
oh man,
They had some great quotes in there.
Sinners. Yeah, Sinners.
Yes,
Sinners. That was the last movie I watched.
amazing movie. Um,
I'm a
okay.
big. I'm a big like series person. I love like TV series and like I'm a big Law and Order SVU guy.
Okay. What's
And
another like okay, so then besides Law and Order, what's your most favorite recent series?
Suits.
Yes. Oh my God.
Suits.
The original one, not the
Yeah.
new one, right?
No,
Yes.
not the new one. Suits.
I
Suits.
agree. I agree. I'm
Man,
obsessed with that too.
I
That
love
was
Suits.
that was just a classic one.
Yeah.
Okay, and so where can everybody find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter. My handle is Larry O'Bannon. The podcast is the PPU podcast on Instagram. Larry O'Bannon. The podcast is the Players Perspective podcast. Facebook, the same. My name, Larry
Okay.
O'Bannon Jr. Then we have a Players Perspective podcast on Facebook. But generally on all social media
Okay.
platforms, just type in Larry O'Bannon and you can find it. It'll pop up.
I'll put all the links in the show notes for everybody out there. Larry, thank you so much for doing this. I've really loved getting to know more of your story and just hearing some of the great perspectives that you had from your career.
Sandy, it's been a pleasure, and I definitely have to tell Devontae thank you as well for linking us up. And I apologize for what we had to do to Memphis not too
Oh,
long ago, but man, it was a pleasure to be on. I love your podcast, and I
thank
really
you.
look forward to listening to it once you get it up and loaded.
It's interesting because when Michael stepped back, I was like, do I continue or not? Because I didn't play sports.
Hmm.
But it's really not necessarily about sports. It's about your career and like how do you go from being an athlete to a non-athlete, really.
Right.
But I gotta say, I have had the most incredible conversations with people. I'll just go onto LinkedIn and Google student athlete or something and reach out to different people. And I've tried different sports and make sure I get males and females. And it's
Yep.
just really, I have loved the process and just loved all the people that I've met. It's been really
M-
great.
Man, it's been great for me in that same instance because
Mm.
I've had a chance to really meet a lot of people that
Yes.
I've always wanted to talk to, and a lot of people, I've talked to at the University of Louisville that played for Louisville that I've
Right.
always wanted to meet and just never had a chance to, man, and just have conversations and talk to them and research and find out things that you never really
Exactly.
knew till you prepare for the interview, right? And it's like I think that's the cool part of it. So
Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you all for watching and listening, especially if you've made it all the way to this part of the show. I appreciate all your support. Until next time, remember, change is our ally and it paves the way for greatness. Stay inspired. Have a great rest of the week.